and welcome back, adventurers, to the next episode of Let's Play Chaos Child. And in the last episode, Takuru and Serika surprisingly managed to infiltrate their way inside the Love Hotel, getting past the lone police officer frantically calling for backup. But that begs the question, why is there only one police officer here who is first on the scene? Normally there'd be one or two others nearby or something. But meanwhile, Takuru and Serika made their way to room 306, believing it to be the room of the crime scene, and then a sudden noise happened, pointing out the fact that it was actually the room next door, which is the room we're in front of now, room 305. The room with the music box playing. And I said before in the previous episode that the music was glitching. There isn't actually a problem with the music. It's just the fact that my volume is turned down considerably low for obvious Let's Playing reasons. And just the faint echo just makes it sound like the music is glitching out and corrupting. But that's just the instrumentation. So forget what I said in the previous episode about the music playing up. Music is perfectly fine. It was relaxed and peaceful, even if we weren't, and played the same tune over and over again, or I should really say tune, proper enunciation there. Although I have to disagree with Takuru's sentiment. This music does not make me feel relaxed. Well, this music, I agree with him that I do not feel. This music doesn't make me feel relaxed and peaceful, and also this music is not relaxed and peaceful.
この部屋だ。窓が開いていた部屋。
Yes, indeed. We had a 50-50 choice and we almost were about to enter the wrong room. But it seems like we've been guided in the right direction, which is actually somewhat foreboding. Serika was looking at me.
開く?
There's only one way to find out. No, that's... I hesitated, but she put her hand on the doorknob.
ダメ.
The door is locked, possibly from the inside. She seemed relieved, but a little upset. I knew exactly how she felt. Well, unless we want to break the door down, we're not getting in this way. I felt the same way. So close, yet so far. I moved away from the door. I would have liked to have take some photos before I left, but okay. Even I have to admit, that is creepy. That is literally the creepiest thing. And that's saying a lot, given what's happened up till this point.
今、鍵の音しなかった?
Yes, did you see the lock just magically open? Yeah. That was what it sounded like. Also, that's what it looked like, because we just saw it. We were too confused to move. There was no sign of anyone coming out. Someone opened that lock. I slowly touched the doorknob. It turned. How very convenient. The door was unlocked, even though it was just locked a second ago. How? I think we're really going to regret finding out the answer to that question, Takuru. Yeah, even I am having butterflies in my stomach at this. As if guided by all the strange things that were happening, I pushed the record button on my smartphone. I gripped the doorknob tighter. A voice in my mind told me to stop, to go back. But it was wiped out by the sound of the smartphone recording starting and the door slowly opening. The more it opened, the less I was able to ignore my curiosity. Here we go. It felt like something besides Serika was pushing me forward as I opened the door. That song was playing in the dimly lit room. No sign of anyone yet. All the lights were off, but the sun outside was streaming through the open window. Its light was very weak. The curtain in front of me, which partitioned off a part of the room, was blocking the light. Clearly that's not the window curtain, because the window curtain was open. Well, there is something behind this partition, and we're here to find out exactly what it is. I gulped and realized my lips were dry. I ran my tongue over them to wet them a little, then realized my heart was pounding. Sound was so loud I thought my heart might have somehow moved up into my ears. That is the sound of your ears pulsing. It seemed to be beating out some bizarre rhythm, and it was making me sick. I forced myself to swallow my saliva. Yeah, I completely butchered that word. And hoped it would keep me from throwing up. Then I took a slow step forward. I held up my phone to record what I was seeing, and then I realized something. That curtain wasn't partitioning the room. It was a bed. There was a raised spot off the floor with a circular bed surrounded by a curtain. The light was streaming out from behind it. The windows we'd seen were on the other side of it. And the song seemed to be coming from there as well. Crap, it was too dark. I went to flip the nearby light switch, then forced myself to stop. Yeah, that is a good call there. No. I couldn't touch anything in the room. Some kind of crime must have taken place in here. Of course, well, even if we do interact with the curtain, we are in fact kind of contaminating a crime scene, if indeed crime scene this is. But I was scared to go any deeper into the darkness. My My shoes made my steps loud against the floor. There was no response. Only the relaxed melody. Yet again, the dread. I gave a signal to Serika, who was still behind me, and went deeper into the room. What? For a moment I just...
なんか金属がきしむ音みたいな。
Sound of creaking metal, you say? Felt like I was hearing it between the gaps in the music box's melody. There was no change that I could see. No one jumped out. Nothing was moving. It was just the sound of the music box. I looked from one part of the room to another to make sure nothing was amiss. And then I slowly moved forward. Well, here goes nothing. Let's do this. Someone was lying on the floor. When my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw a police officer and a broken mirror. Well, at least now we know why the other police officer was so frantically calling for backup. And a woman? The officer was lying up against the bathroom with his legs splayed and his head drooping. The girl was lying on the floor face down. They showed no signs of noticing us. Yeah, funny that. Indeed, no, that wasn't right. The glass behind them was shattered into 1,000 pieces.
やばい。
Yeah, this is a crime scene. The second I understood what was going on, the hand holding the smartphone started to shake. Crap, crap, crap. I could see a little blood dripping off the police officer's head. He might only be knocked unconscious from a concussion, but somehow I'm not getting that vibe. I spun around as I heard the sound. Someone is there. The warmth drained from my face in an instant and my whole body shivered. There was a silhouette or shadow of something. Someone was sitting on the bed. I staggered back and slammed into Serika.
逃げよう。早く。
Think we might have bitten off more wheat than we can chew. But I couldn't move. Of course not. My hand was frozen as it pointed the smartphone toward whoever was behind the curtain. And it wasn't doing what I told it. Damn it. I took a step back, tripped, and then fell to the floor. My lungs weren't working right. Looks like we winded ourselves. The silhouette moved a little, and I flinched. No, it didn't move. The bed was rotating. Whoever was behind the curtain showed no sign of noticing us. They didn't budge an inch. That's not a good sign.
何なんだよ。
Hmm. Oh dear. Probably should not have shut the door. But it's too late. Serika's voice sounded like it was far away. I ran back to the entrance and slammed myself into the door. It wasn't opening. It wasn't opening. Yeah, we're locked inside.
開かないんだよ。
Could be either one of two things. Ghosts or an automatically remote-controlled lock. Serika yelled back at me. Yeah, starting to get the feeling that we were actually lured here. Serika screamed as she slammed against the door. Not that screaming is going to help us in this situation. I helped her try to batter it down, but this door is actually pretty sturdy. It didn't work. It was like trying to batter down a wall, which is basically what a door is supposed to do. Or most doors in any case. And that was definitely a knock from the other side. Suddenly I heard a knock at the door. I reflexively jumped away without thinking. Oh, that's not good. It was coming from this door. We've heard that knocking twice. Once in Utani's apartment, and again at Momone's stage room. The knocking was rhythmic and constant. I think it's safe to say that that knocking is the sound of our death. It was just a knock at the door. No, it isn't. It is not just a knock. It is anything but just a knock at the door. But my whole body started to shake. Someone was on the other side of the door. Someone was knocking. Definitely wasn't the police. Obviously. I felt as if my sanity was boiling away, melting out from the soles of my feet on upward.
ダメだ。ダメだ。
Don't open that door. Right. Go out the back.
窓から何とかして逃げよう。
We're on the 3rd floor. And there are no balconies outside. This isn't gonna go well. I grabbed Serika's hand and ran to the back of the room. And fell silent at what I saw. Oh dear. What was that? The curtain was open. There was a man there. sitting. No, he was moving slowly. That is the rotating of the bed. The bed was moving in time to the sound of the music box. Well, this modus operandi is definitely unlike any of the previous new generation crimes. An eerie sound came from the wire wrapped around his neck. The wire was hanging down from the ceiling, choking him. This isn't a feature of the Love Hotel. His face was all puffed up in a color I'd never seen before. His pants were wet, and the stain extended to the bed itself. The smell of piss and shit hung in my nose. It wasn't alive. It was dead.
なんだよこれ
Why was he dead? Well, probably because he asphyxiated. Did he suffocate? Why was the curtain open? What the hell was he doing? Why was he dead? As if the wires, weren't enough of an indication. However, if your question is in fact, why was this man murdered? That is the very mystery at the heart of all this. My right hand moved without me realizing it. And we are recording. I needed to use the window to escape, but I pointed my phone's camera at the body instead. Yeah, we need to leave right now. We've already found our crime scene. 2 people who may or may not be dead, just unconscious, and 1 final person who is almost certainly dead. The body spun, slowly. Each time it went around, the wire made an awful sound and dug deeper into his neck. It had dug in so deep now that the man's neck was the size of my wrist. The skin must have broken because it was bleeding a little. Yeah, you thought you could be ace reporter detective. Unfortunately, that has all fallen apart, it seems. Serika was right next to me, but her voice sounded far away, like she was talking through a telephone. I needed to get out of here, but I couldn't stop the filming. Why was I doing this? It's almost as if Takuru is being possessed. But that's impossible. Again, why was he dead? The wire dug deeper and deeper into his neck without waiting for me to come up with an answer. The body turned away from me. I could see the back of his neck. The flesh around the wire was swollen red and black. I heard a muffled sound, like something hard snapping inside of a bag. The head slumped just a little. His neck had just broken. That must have been the sound of neck breaking. I could hear Serika's voice. Get out of here. Get out of here.
そうだ、逃げなきゃ。
Need to go while the going's good. But there is still the matter of that knocking. My body moved as I heard another sound. I spun around. Oh. Okay. Well, you've just woken up, whoever you are, and, I'm gonna bet that you're probably going to fall back unconscious again. Hopefully. I screamed. And then I heard something from behind me. I don't know what I did, but the next thing I knew, my whole field of vision had turned red. Then I felt something like a ball hit me. Before I could understand what it was, everything faded to black. September 30th, 2015. Wednesday. midnight. And, we have a, different person here. Looks like the police reinforcements have arrived, and also this man here who is obviously dressed in the dapper suit of a police detective.
新庄さん、所持品と防犯カメラの映像から親族に裏取れました。
Ah, so this is the aforementioned Shinjo that the police officer downstairs was frantically asking for.
死亡したのは柿田博則22歳。渋谷在住のフリーターで更新でマーケティングのアルバイトをしていたようです。
Ah, so the victim was Hironori Kikita. The job at Koshin, a venture capital company located in Shibuya that participated in the post-earthquake reconstruction business. After using massive amounts of money to monopolize the construction companies involved in the reconstruction, they moved on to other projects such as the introduction of new infrastructure, i.e. the deployment of high-powered security cameras around the city. They'd also taken the lead in supplying business models and partnership opportunities to various non-profits and volunteer groups, and in helping establish self-sufficient communities among the survivors. In the process, they've made vast amounts of money. Some earthquake survivors and residents claim that they're a brutal, tyrannical company that does not hesitate to use evictions and eminent domain to take property they want. So, the third victim belongs to the company that have established all the surveillance cameras around Shibuya in the wake of the New Generation Madness and the Third Melt.
更新でバイト？恋人は？
いません。 同居人もなし、一人暮らしだったようです。
And yet this man was murdered at a love hotel of all places.
くそ。
Why was he there? Did he come here of his own volition? Or was he brought here against his will? Shinjo cursed. If he was single and not in a relationship, it would take time to figure out his private life. And Koshin was one of the companies that had profited the most from the recovery projects in recent years. Part-time or not, if he worked there, he was probably pretty busy. It was possible that his co-workers knew just his name and nothing else about who he was outside of work. Well, unless this is a bit of a poser, because unless this victim is also happens to be a Niconia user in his spare time, which the possibility certainly is fairly plausible. Unless that is the case, then he breaks the pattern. Unless there is something else that ties the victims together to this new chain of events.
信者さん、マスコミへの対応どうしますか？海読みテレビやニコニアのネット記者が引き下がらなくて。
Speaking of Niconia, looks like they're on the scene.
それから現場にいた例の子たちですが、壁標の新聞部と言っていた2人、状態は落ち着いたみたいなんですが、やはりところどころ要領を得ません。
That of course would be Takuru and Serika. And what about the others? The dead police officer, or unconscious police officer, unconscious maybe, and the strange, bizarre girl who just happened to wake up.
もう一人の女の子も身元を示すものを何も持っていなく、柿田の交友関係、親戚筋から洗っていますが、まだ当たりません。こっちは完全黙秘です。
Okay, so at the very least she's not a phantom or a delusion, haha, but a little bit of chaos humor there. But that girl is real, obviously, since she's been interrogated by the police. But we don't know what connection she has to Kakita.
あと、先ほど検視の方から問い合わせが。
待て、勝手に。
And then there is the matter of the police officer.
ニコニアニュースの渡部です。すいません。一体何が起こって？
I'm actually surprised that an internet streaming service actually warrants its own news network, independent media or not. That is more than a little peculiar for my tastes. A news site offered by Niconia that offers information on a number of topics. It consists primarily of summaries of articles written by various groups and individuals, but lately it has put resources into having its own journalists do original reporting as well. They must be doing good business if they can do that.
出て行け、許可なく入るな。
一言お願いします。
Shinjo's men physically dragged the reporter out of the room. Oh well. It happens. And we have his full name. Takeshi Shinjo. He had to stop himself from putting his hands to his head and moaning. He couldn't let his men see him acting weak. Shinjo had been with Police HQ's Section 1 for less than 7 years. He didn't get along with his superiors, but he managed to beg his way into being in charge of this case. Seems like the higher-ups really have it in for Shinjo. Maybe this was his way of avenging the death of an older detective who he admired.
窓枠の鑑識が終わったらすぐに外から見えないようにしといてくれ。あのネット記者は最近何するかわからん。
Indeed. Looks as though Takuru's scoop is dead on arrival.
検視は俺が直接対応する。それから会社の仕事周りへの人数を増やしてくれ。上には後で俺から言っておく。
Well, it seems that Shinjo here is definitely putting on a very professional face.
はい。それで例の子たちは。
それも俺が持つ。じゃ、よろしく頼む。
はい。
His men raced out of the room. They'd never had a case like this before. They were probably pretty excited. But Shinjo seems to be of a very different disposition. Or maybe not. So was Shinjo, to be honest. The whole thing was such a mess that he didn't even know where to begin. But his detective's instincts were screaming at him to start doing the work needed to find the killer. You definitely have your work cut out for you, my friend.
よし。
Okay, so maybe we're not friends per se, but you get the idea.
Hi, 信用調査会社フリージアでございます。
Oh ho! Now there is a name that I have not heard for, well, a short while, and a name that probably hasn't been heard in-game for 6 years. The Trustworthiness Investigation Company, Frisia. Could this be who I think it is, ladies and gentlemen? I think it might be. Our first holdover from ChäoS Head. His call was answered on the first ring, like always.
俺です。
And I think I know who the older detective who Shinjo looks up to is. It's all coming together
あ
once
ら、
again.
新庄ちゃん、遅かったわね。もうちょっと早く連絡が来ると思ってたけど。
Yeah, having played through ChäoS Head, I'd recognize that unique dialogue anywhere.
あ、すいません。
Shinjo apologized without thinking, and for no clear reason. I could spoil who that is on the other line, but I'm not going to. Don't want to spoil the surprise. He always felt like a naughty child when he spoke to the CEO, who happened to be a woman. A very capable woman, I might add.
現場の面倒をちゃんと見てるから苦労すんのよ。少しはあの人みたいにチャランポランで行きなさいな。
Like they did. Huh.
先輩の性格まで見習うつもりはありませんよ。
So many memories.
真面目だわね。いつまでも真面目が美徳だと思ってると痛い目見るわよ。
百瀬さん、そんなことより相談したいことがあるんです。
Yeah, I called it. That is indeed, not the cat has been let out of the bag there. This is indeed Mimose from the Frisia investigations. And, yeah. Shinjo cut her off before she could continue her lecture, and gave her a brief description of the scene. On the one hand, I shouldn't really have been surprised that she of all people would be involved in this, given her involvement in the investigation of the New Generation Madness. And yet, her presence isn't exactly the comfort I would hope it would be. Because if she's been dragged into all this again, she might not be the only holdover from the past that we might encounter. For good or ill. For good or ill. This was a violation of the rules, but the only way to solve a crazy case was to be a little crazy yourself. That was the first thing he'd learned from that older detective. Yeah. Does the name Yasuji Ban mean anything to you, adventurers? If you followed my ChäoS Head LP, congratulations. You've just, and of course, for those of you who are just following my ChäoS Child LP for the first time, now you know the name of that older detective that Shinjo admires. And given that fact, that actually makes Mimose's advice to Shinjo somewhat hypocritical. Now, if Ban had actually taken that advice, well, actually, strike that. Mimose would actually tell Ban the opposite advice, because if Shinjo was too serious, Ban was, well, he was too relaxed, and in the end, it was his own nature that inevitably cost him his life. And as for Ban's junior partner in the police department, we will never utter his name again. We do not speak of Ban's junior
それって
partner.
殺人なの？自殺なの？
But then again, in spite of what I just said earlier, it is very good to hear your voice again, Katsuko Mimose. It has been too long. Mimose asked her a question after he described the situation. She cut to the heart of the problem.
現状ではそれがわからないんです。
The hotel had gotten suspicious when Kakita had never come down after checkout time. When more than 10 calls to the room went unanswered, they'd contacted the police. 2 officers as well as someone from the hotel had gone to the room and found the body in an unconscious girl. 1 officer stayed at the scene to keep it secure, and the other searched the hotel to make sure it was safe. During the search, he'd forgotten to lock the employee entrance on the back near the stairs. That was how the 2 students from Hikiho had gotten in. Surprise, surprise. Shortly after he'd left the room, the girl woke up and started strangling the officer who stayed. He hit his head on the glass window and knocked himself out. That is rather peculiar behavior. Sorry about that, adventurers. Just had to suppress a sneeze. He was going to be fine, but he was out cold until backup arrived. Well, at least he wasn't dead. So, that's the only silver lining we can take from all this, I guess. But, then again, the girl, who strangled him, or attempted to strangle him, probably was, a bit hysterical, not quite in her right mind. But something definitely happened. When the backup got there, they found the girl unconscious on the floor. A boy from Hikio had passed out on the floor too. That, of course, would be Takuru. The other girl from Hikio was throwing up, also on the floor. That would be Serika. Kakita's cause of death was asphyxia by strangulation. The wire around his neck was a kind used at construction sites. It had been hung in an X pattern from the lights on the ceiling. And he'd been sitting on the bed as it rotated. That's why there was so much pressure on his neck that finally his head had been severed. From the estimated time of death, Kakita had passed away before the police had even been contacted. No surprises there. The body on the bed kept spinning in time to the music. One rotation every 2 minutes. In the end, the man's head had been cut off completely. Tragic. The problem was the girl in the room, the one who was unconscious. There was no indication that she'd ever touched Kakita. There were no fingerprints or any other signs that she'd touched Kakita's body, the bed, or the wire. So why was she even there? The only thing they found under her fingernails were skin and blood from the officer she'd strangled. In fact, there was no indication she touched much of anything in the room. Everything they found belonged to Kakita. So either there is a connection between this girl and Kakita, or for reasons unknown, Kakita might have brought the girl himself? Or maybe whoever was that murdered Kakita in this gruesome fashion was also the one that kidnapped this unknown girl. And according to the officer she'd strangled, when she'd attacked him, she'd clearly been in an unstable psychological state. That does not surprise me in the least. Not at this juncture. Her eyes were bloodshot and out of focus.
つまり何？その女の子は柿田って男が死ぬのを黙って見ていて、部屋の中のものにほとんど触れず、混濁した意識のまま警官に襲いかかって首を絞めたと。
That is about the long and short of it. But you of all people should understand the implications of a psychological attack in Shibuya, Mimose. But unfortunately, Shinjo doesn't have the evidence to supplant that theory. Shinjo scratched his head as he heard her sum up the situation. That was what it looked like, at least from what they knew right now. And just going by that, it sure looked like a suicide. But it was all far too strange.
なるほど。厄介だわね。 現場に入り込んだっていう壁法の子たちは？
ショックが大きかったようで、最初は何も喋らなかったんですが、今は少しずつ話し始めています。
Dramatic is accurate if a bit of an understatement.
ですが、いろいろと問題のある壁法の子ですから。
Apparently, all is not well at Hikio Academy. He checked with the school and verified that they were part of the school's newspaper club. The security camera at the rear entrance had seen them coming in, which matched with their testimony. But he didn't know what to make of their testimony that the door had opened on its own, or that someone else had tried to come into the room. The door was equipped with an automatic lock, and the only person inside the room who could have opened it was that girl. There was no sign of her fingerprints on the door, and yet that door opened and then shut again. And the security camera in the hallway showed no signs of anyone else trying to go in, and yet there was that ominous knocking on the door. In any event, it was extremely rare for a civilian to see a dead body outside of a funeral. And in an unstable mental state, it was extremely easy to imagine things or just outright be mistaken about what was going on. If they turned out not to have any relationship to Kikito or the girl, he planned on letting them off with a stern warning. Well, be that as it may, they don't have to be fair, they don't have a relationship with the victim or the girl. But once Shinjo learns that Takuru has actually been investigating the other two murders and linking them up with the New Generation Madness, things are about to get a lot more strained.
結局のところ、一番大きな手がかりは部屋に潜んでいたその子なんですが、何も喋りません。
And the third girl, well, the third person, the other girl isn't talking, understandably. Although, to be fair, I am surprised that Momose hasn't put two and two together or made the similar sort of connections that Takuru has. Or maybe she is wishing against fate, as they say.
そのままだと非感知よね。
Psychiatric hold. That doesn't sound good. Here used to refer to the act of keeping someone in custody in a designated location, such as a mental hospital chosen by the police, until their psychological state has been normalized. Well, there is one mental hospital in Shibuya that you should absolutely not put her in under any circumstances. I know 6 years have passed, but trust me, putting her in that place, bad idea. And even putting her in the general hospital is actually not a good idea either.
はい。そうなると大幅に捜査が遅れることになるので、そうしたくないんです。
The investigation is already going down a slow route as it is.
わかったわ。ちょっと情報を回させてちょうだい。多分、新庄ちゃんの立場的に無理してもらうことになるから、覚悟はしといてね。3分後にこっちからかけ直すから。
Very well then.
助かります。よろしくお願いします。
Shinjo went to hang up the phone.
ちょっと。
はい。
One more detail.
そういえばお願いがあるのよ。絶対に新庄ちゃんのためにもなることなんだけど、聞いてくれないかしら。
Mose wants a favor from Shinjo. So it was basically an order then, Shinjo thought to himself. Well, think of it as a request, not an
何
order.
ですか？
この件に関して私より詳しいうちの子が一人いるのよ。それで今回の現場を直接見たいって言ってるんだけど、お願いできない？
One of Momose's kids. Now, I don't know whether or not Momose actually has children or not, although I think she's referring to the younger staff working under her in the investigations company. Although I have a hunch that if this person is who I think it is, we are going to probably see more holdovers from ChäoS Head than I originally thought we were going to.
部外者を現場に？
いつだって物事を解決するヒントを与えるのは部外者よ。
That is true, and that advice was what Yazuji-ban took to heart. After all, I'm an outsider too, she continued. No arguments there.
うーん。
She is a private investigator, whereas Shinjo is a public detective. In his head, Shinjo went over the steps he'd have to take and the time required to take them.
明日、いや、明後日で構いませんか？
さすが新庄ちゃん、話せるじゃない。よくそれで堅物揃いの捜査一課に残れてるわね。
Is it me, or is Momose agreeing to Shinjo's proposition or not?
では、よろしくお願いします。
あ、ちょっと新庄ちゃん。
He barely stopped himself from ending the call. Still was more to say.
まだ何か？
念のためアドバイスをしとこうと思って。2つね。
Two pieces of advice.
言っておくけど、さっきのは冗談じゃないのよ。
You mean the thing about sending one of your people over to assist in the investigation? No, you're not much of a kidder.
は？
チャランポランで行きなさいっていうやつよ。
Oh, that. Of course.
これから間違いなく新庄ちゃんの理解の外にある事件は続くわよ。その時一番邪魔になるのは常識だから気をつけなさいな。
Ah. So it seems that Momose has gone down the same road as Takuru after all.
肝に銘じます。
Interesting. Then again, she is an accomplished investigator in her own right, and given what she investigated during the New Generation Madness, I don't doubt her skills for a second.
そこで真面目に返事しているようではまだまだね。もう一つはね。
Now for the second piece of advice. Momose paused for a second and chuckled.
うちの子に取って食われないようにね。油断してると新庄ちゃんが部外者になりかねないわよ。
September 30th, Wednesday, 2015. Same day. Well, we're back at the academy.
なあ、スイポ見た？
Ah. Well, looks like things are slowly getting back to normal. as far as normal in Shibuya is these days. But that is going to bring an end to this episode of Let's Play Chaos Child. And when we return, we can only wait and see as to how Takuru and Serika are faring after what they've just witnessed. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.